How is it going, everybody? My name is Snazzy Patty, and today, man, we're checking out a video by Popo Medic. This video is called "The Most Aggressive Gang Unit That Ever Existed, LAPD Crash." As always, the link to the original video down in the description below. Make sure you go check that out. As always, the link to the original video down in the description below. Without further ado, let's lock in. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bow.
Monday, December 18th, 1997. For nearly 2 decades, Los Angeles had begun descending into a city overwhelmed by gangs and gang warfare. Entire neighborhoods were swallowed by narcotics, drive-by shootings, and murder rates so catastrophic that parts of South Central were beyond law enforcement's control. But after years of careful deliberation, the LAPD found a solution, creating an elite and aggressive anti-gang unit built to wage war on Los Angeles street gangs. The LA...
You know, they were so smart to really pick, like, LA for the location of San Andreas and Los Santos and the GTA. Like, can we give credit to Rockstar? They really do their research on where are the most, like, GTA servers in the real world. You know, especially with GTA 6 coming out being in Florida, everything's only crazier now. You know, the new generations, we crazy, we crash outs and shit like that. So, speaking of that, it seems like everywhere you go is a real life GTA server. So they could really pick anywhere and it would work. It makes sense.
LAPD Crash Unit.
I wonder if it's an acronym for something.
By the early 1980s, Los Angeles was quickly becoming one of the most violent cities in America. Across South Central and East LA, gang warfare, narcotics trafficking, and drive-by shootings had become so common that for many residents, the sound of helicopters circling overhead at night had simply become part of daily life. Kids on the block quickly learned which streets not to cross, and families slept on floors to avoid stray rounds punching through apartment windows.
You know, it's pretty crazy to think about because you have people who are living like this, and then you have people who are living the complete 180 life, you know, in a nice, beautiful little suburban home, got both parents, you know, taking care of them. Growing up, they had 3 warm meals every night. Parents never had to stress about bills. They went to college, didn't have to worry about debt, were able to coast through life, you know. And even that's not even the worst circumstance for, you know, the people living over in, you know, Compton and stuff like that during the 1980s and 70s. Like right now at this moment, you could be a civilian stuck in a war zone. You know, you could be living on the streets and not have access to water because of where you live, and to the point where your teeth are rotten and falling out. It just really, like, you know, shows you that you should be appreciative of no matter like where you are, what you have, because there's always somebody with it worse. Not saying that whatever you're going through or dealing with doesn't matter or is invalid or like it's not an issue and that you should just be like okay with your situation. I'm just saying that there's like a balance in between, you know. I've lived in good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods my whole life growing up. I moved around a lot. You know, right after high school, I moved into a neighborhood that within like the few months I lived on that street had got shot up 4 times, one hit in the right next to my window, my bedroom window. And now, you know, I'm not living in no crazy big ass mansion, but I live in a nice, you know, little suburban house in a quiet little neighborhood with a bunch of old people in my neighborhood. And yeah, it's not the most exciting, it's not the most glamorous or fun, but I appreciate it compared to what it could have been or what it was. And that goes to everybody watching this, man. Appreciate what you do have. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't try to push my religion and too much onto this channel, but, you know, you woke up today. Thank God, or whoever you know, decided to thank, or, you know, if you don't have a religion or whatever, just be grateful you woke up.
And homicide detectives were working murder scenes faster than coroners could even clear the bodies. And at the center were the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips, the 8-Tray Gangster Crips, Grape Street Watts Crips, Bounty Hunter Bloods, and the up-and-coming Hispanic set, the 18th Street Gang. And to make matters worse, crack cocaine arrived. By the mid-1980s, entire sections of Los Angeles were drowning in crack money. Gang members armed themselves with MAC-10s, Uzis, sawed-off shotguns, and AK variants, flowing north.
Doesn't help that, you know, the government flooded the poor neighborhoods and the ghettos with crack cocaine. Just gonna say that right now. We're not gonna talk about that though, are we?
From cartel pipelines and south from American gun stores, and full-blown apartment complexes quickly turned into gang strongholds, leading to the LAPD's mentality changing altogether. Under controversial police chief Daryl Gates, the department increasingly viewed gang violence as less traditional policing and more like urban warfare. Patrol officers rolled through neighborhoods that looked increasingly hostile. Narcotics teams hit fortified stash houses protected by armed lookouts. Officers attended funerals for slain cops, while gang funerals filled entire city blocks. And the pressure to stop the bloodshed only intensified.
It's such a tricky situation in a war, you know, because like political war, and not trying to get political here, but let's be honest, there's a lot of shitty cops out there, right? Obviously, I'm not saying all cops are bad. The individual is a separate thing. But my view on it is the police as a whole needs some serious restructuring and some retraining, and to figure out their shit. Times have changed and they need to reevaluate how they handle situations. But at the same time, I also understand there's only so much you can do when somebody is being just absolutely a danger to themselves and everybody around them, and just refusing to listen, and there is no saving or preventing the situation or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're a cop, you're held to a higher expectation, all right? I see way too many body cam videos and footage of cops acting like pussies, all right, or power tripping or having an ego trip, and then they can't even back it up and stand on 10 toes, all right? They got to call for mad backup and struggle the whole time and get their asses thrown around. Gangs just didn't start up out of nowhere to become violent and to, do drugs and gangs and, guns, violence, all that blah, 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 da, 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 da. It was originally started to protect themselves and their community against, other races that were going after them. It just so happened that, money got involved, and money is the root of all evil. And especially the government helped along with that by flooding it all, all the ghettos and stuff with crack and cocaine, and using that as an excuse, the whole war on drugs and all that, and bringing in these corrupt cop forces. Because I'm sorry, I'm sure, especially with how corrupt the force was back then, how many bribes they were taking, how much they would get away with. They were a gang backed by the government. That was it. Now, obviously, again, I'm going to say this right now, not every cop was bad, not every cop is bad. But the system is flawed. Political rant over. Let's get back into the video now.
In the late 1970s, LAPD had already begun experimenting with specialized anti-gang units, small aggressive teams tasked with specifically targeting gang members, and in 1979, the department formally consolidated those efforts into something new: the LAPD's Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums, aka
Crash.
the Crash Unit. At first, much of Los Angeles welcomed them. They largely operated in uniform, operated from unmarked vehicles, and flooded gang neighborhoods with jump outs, warrant service, and street sweeps. Young officers wanted in the unit badly. The work was dangerous, aggressive, and high profile, and within LAPD culture, Crash quickly gained an almost mythical reputation. But as the violence throughout Los Angeles escalated, the line between aggressive policing and outright brutality slowly began to blur. As Crash's mentality
he's gonna bring it up.
was to fight fire with a lot more fire.
Okay, let's give it an honest review. All right, the flaws and the benefits of it. Digging the music. GTA police chase.
Throughout the late 1980s and early 90s, Crash units flooded South Central, Pico Union, and Rampart Division with anti-gang operations. Officers developed informant networks, served narcotics warrants, conducted jump outs, and hunted heavily armed suspects through some of the most violent neighborhoods in America. And the unit's numbers seemed to justify their existence. But before we go any further, a quick word from the sponsor of today's video. You and your family's information today. Operation Hammer alone resulted in tens of thousands of arrests during its peak years. Gang injunctions and saturation patrols hit major blood and Crip strongholds relentlessly. In some weekends, LAPD's Crash unit swept up more than 1,000 suspected gang members at a time, officers seized hundreds of firearms, recovered stolen vehicles, and dismantled crack houses that fueled open-air drug markets. By the early 1990s, LAPD estimated Los Angeles had more than 800 active gangs and over 100,000 gang members.
Is it more or now, or more? Is it more or less now? At least LA specifically. I also wonder the same thing about Chicago and New York. Chicago, New York, LA, those have always seemed to be the big gang, mafia, crime areas. I wonder what other places. I feel like there's definitely Florida has one or two. Texas, maybe? I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot of crime in Texas, but there is. It's weird, you know? Like, none of those cities that I'm aware of scream, you know, drill scene, pretty much. Let's be honest.
Operating throughout the county, and local news stations portrayed the crash unit as the thin blue line standing between Los Angeles and total collapse. However, they weren't immune to criticism. Residents accused crash officers of beatings, intimidation, unlawful shootings, and planting evidence. Suspects claimed officers stole money during raids, and stories spread of crash cops spray painting over gang graffiti with their own crash markings. And then came the Dalton Avenue raid.
I've even heard about that. And didn't it get to the point where the LA riots, right? The massive LA riots? Are we gonna talk about that?
In August of 1988, officers connected to anti-drug operations raided several apartment units in South Central Los Angeles, searching for narcotics. Instead, the operation turned into a disaster. Apartments were smashed apart, walls destroyed, property stolen, residents terrorized. Lawsuits quickly followed, and the city eventually paid out millions. And for many in Los Angeles County, this became the first major red flag surrounding the crash unit. But as the city's gang wars escalated, Crash received more funding than ever. In 1990 alone, Los Angeles County recorded more than 800 gang-related murders. But by March 3rd of 1991, everything was about to change with Rodney King. And 1 year later, on April 29th of 1992, after the acquittal of the officers involved in the Rodney King beating, riots erupted across Los Angeles. More than 50 people were killed, thousands were injured, and entire city blocks were left blackened and destroyed. And for many inside Crash, the riots reinvigorated their purpose, particularly in the Rampart Division. Arrest numbers mattered, seizures mattered, tactical aggression mattered. The line between proactive policing and outright criminality slowly began eroding behind closed doors, and no officer embodied that transformation more than Rafael Perez. Perez initially appeared to be exactly what the department wanted, a highly aggressive anti-gang officer, generating arrests in one of the city's most violent districts.
What'd he do?
But behind the scenes, investigators would later accuse Perez and other Crash officers of operating almost like a street gang of their own. Then, in 1996, came the shooting of Javier Ovando. Ovando, an alleged gang member, was shot and paralyzed by Crash officers inside an apartment. Officers claimed Ovando had attacked them with a rifle. Based largely on police testimony, Ovando was sentenced to prison while confined to a wheelchair. But the story was a lie. And by 1998, the entire system began unraveling.
Like, I'm sorry, but how can you stand for a system that has gone away with this? Even if, you know, things are changing and, you know, not every incident ends like this and all that, you can't take the chance. Now that this is a known possibility, now that it's been exposed, and it has been exposed for decades, you know, no wonder you guys have such poor reputation. By you guys, I'm talking about the police force and the government.
That year, Perez was arrested after stealing nearly 80 pounds of cocaine from an LAPD evidence locker. Facing prison, he began cooperating with investigators, and what followed detonated the Rampart scandal. Perez accused Crash officers of making false arrests, provoking shootings, planting guns, giving beatings, and committing perjury and evidence fabrication, stretching across years of operations inside Crash's Rampart Division. Investigators reopened case after case as Crash convictions began collapsing. The anti-gang unit built a wage war on Los Angeles street gangs.
I wonder if they're going to tell us. I hope they do. But I wonder how many cases were overturned or found like where they weren't guilty or something like that, because I'm sure, yes, it did help statistically clean up the streets and stuff like that, made them safer. But how many people's lives were ruined falsely over this?
Gangs had itself become consumed by corruption. More than 70 officers were implicated in misconduct connected to Rampart. The city of Los Angeles paid out massive civil settlements, while public trust in the LAPD collapsed even further. For supporters of Crash, the scandal was just that, a scandal. To prohibit rogue officers from carrying out necessary yet controversial justice. And even decades later, the story of Crash still lives in a strange place inside Los Angeles history, as it's remembered by some as the only thing keeping the city from falling apart, and by others of how far was too far.
Wow. What an amazing video, guys. Honestly, Popo Medic, what a video. That was, it was only 11 minutes, yet I learned quite a bit, honestly. Mad educational, entertaining, really well put together. I liked the clips. I love when videos, I just love this style of content, man. If you guys do, make sure to let me know by liking and subscribing. Put down in the comment section below, recommend any other videos like this you want me to react to, or anything else in general you want me to react to. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay snazzy, stay blessed.